For this project, I'm starting with 2 lengths of 20 gauge round, dead soft copper wire. They're cut to 7 inches long, and I've marked the very center at 3.5 inches. My oval cut cabochon are garnets. They're faceted, and they are 10 millimeter long by 8 millimeter wide. I'll start with my round nose step pliers, and I'm going to use the dowel that's about 4 millimeter. The reason I'm choosing that is because my cabochon are 8 millimeter wide, so it's about half of that. I'm going to put my 2 wires at the center and just bend a soft oval in them. You can just go ahead and crisscross them. We're going to straighten them out so it doesn't matter what direction they're going in. So I'm just crisscrossing them to make a nice soft oval. And I want that oval to be about 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to actually reduce the size of mine a little bit more. It's a little bit hard for me to see underneath the camera. So I'll just come around these pliers until I get 2 uniform oval, and they are about 1/4 of an inch long from the top to where they cross, and you can see that here. These marks are 1/4 of an inch. Just carefully separate them. Make sure it's sitting flat together there. Just push this one down as well. Make sure they didn't change in shape or size. They're good. I like to do this with my round nose pliers to straighten these 2 wire ends back out. So I've got my round nose. I'm going to hold the loop. I'm going to take my round nose right into the intersection where they cross. And I'm just going to give a nice hearty pinch, but not so hard that you snap your wires. Just start to pinch. They'll start to come together. You can assist them, and then that'll straighten them back out for you. And it's okay if you're a millimeter or so off. I am. Okay, so that's pretty good. I'll do the other one. Hold it by the loop. Take your round nose plier right into that intersection. Give a pinch, and then scooch them together. This one could have gone a little better, but that's okay. That's pretty good there. And they're fairly even, which is good. You want this to sit on your cabochon in such a way that the majority of the head of this is over the cab, about right there, about 1 millimeter into, the depth of the cab is where that intersection is, where that V is. It's about 1 millimeter. And then we're going to weave until you're about 1 millimeter away from the bottom of the cab. So we'll just weave that 1/4 of an inch. I have 1 foot of 28 gauge weaving wire. I'm holding on to the end of, I'll call it the small spoon. I'll insert 1/2 inch and hang on to that so it doesn't travel while I weave. And I'll just start a modified sumac weave. I'll go 360 around the bottom frame wire. Come up and over the whole thing and do a 360 around the top frame wire. Come all the way over and down the back and repeat 360 around the bottom, up, and 360 around the top wire, up and over, down to the bottom from the back. And I'll just change my camera so that you can see that a little better. There we go. So once again, I'll do a 360 around the bottom frame wire, come up and cross them both, and do a 360 around the top frame wire, which brings me to the back of the frame wires. And I'll come all the way back down to the bottom. This is a very short weave. It's only going to be 1/4 of an inch. So after I get 3 or 4 repeats, I'll just carefully scooch the weave. And I'll keep weaving until I think I've got my distance, but I'll check on the back of the cab. It's important to be as close as you can to the bottom, about 1 or 2 millimeter off the bottom of the cab. I like to be about 1 millimeter off. I think that was about 8, maybe 9. And I'm just carefully pushing the weave back. I think that's actually about 9. Okay, and I'll end it with this last wrap around the bottom frame wire. I'll pick my cab up and check the length. This is tiny work, so I'm going to cut this little fragment off here so it's not in my way, because it'll make balancing this cab a little difficult. So I'll hold on to the cab with the bottom side facing me, and I'll just take my measure here, and that's about good right there. You want to be about 1 millimeter away from the top of the cab with the weave, and about 1 millimeter away from the bottom of the cab with the weave. And your loop, wants to be just about a millimeter into the base of the cab there. So that's how you should be looking. And since that's pretty good, I think that was about 9 repeats. You should count, then you'll know how many to do the other one, the other earring. So I'll just tap it with my pliers, gentle tapping to get them together. And I'll go ahead and weave my second one up in the very same way. So I'll start my second one using just the remainder of this length right here. So I'll break this off by giving a little tension and doing big circles until it breaks. Pick up my second one. Just get these wires tame. Go ahead and insert a leading 1/2 inch. Do a 360 around the bottom frame wire, come up. Whoop. Should have given myself more than a 1/2 inch, so I could hold on to it better. Come up and do a 360 around the top frame wire, up and over, do the back side and back down and do a 360 around the bottom wire, and repeat for the same distance as the previous frame. And in my case, I think that was about 9 repeats. So there's 3, 4, 5, This one is number 8. So I think I'm going to check my cab. You should always check the other cab anyway, because sometimes if they're natural gemstones, they're not always consistent in their size if you don't have exact matching pairs. So there's 8 of these little weaves. I'm at a little bit of an odd angle because of my camera. So I'll just cut the end of that off. And now I will pick up my second cab. And actually that looks pretty good right there. So it's about 8 repeats, and I've got a millimeter of room between the weave and the end of the cab on both sides, top and bottom, here and here. Okay, so with that, let's break this little guy off because we don't need him anymore. So I'll give a little tension and do big circles. Take my plier and give this some gentle tapping. I'm going to split these down the middle, and you just want to make sure that you stay centered. So that's pretty easy to do. I just take my thumbnail and start the split, and then you're looking at the center here. And I'm splitting them to about 6 millimeter. The reason being is because my cab is about 8 millimeter wide. So that's still a little bit narrow for me. I'm going to split them a little bit more. It's about a 90-degree angle here. Okay, just try to make sure it's even. If you're a little over the 90, that's okay. You'll understand why in a second. So I can come down on my board and I can check with my crosshairs that my spread of wires is even. Okay, so I'll do the second one. And now I have the first one, so I can do the second one to just match it. So I'll keep my finger right there and I'll just start the split. Hold them up together. It's a pretty good match. That's pretty good. The reason you want this split, and again, it's about 90, maybe it's a little over 90 in this angle. I'm sorry I keep bumping my camera, you guys. So the cab is going to sit like this. And when those 2 wires come up, you want there to be about 2 or 3 millimeter. You want to be just on the temples of the stone. Okay? I know it's hard to see because my fingers are all in the way, but you'll understand here in a minute. So about like that. It's a little bit fiddly until you get these wires up. Okay, so to get these wires up, the easiest way to do it is to put my thumb right here, and I'll use my thumb and just bend straight up into a 90-degree or soft 90-degree angle. Make them as even as you can. Once I get those 2 bends, then it's a little, It's a little easier to work with the stone in place. The stone, if we made our bends and calculations right, should sit, let me move this. So my light's in an odd place, so I'm in an odd place in the camera. I apologize. Should sit about like that. And my two wires are about at the temples, right? Like if this was your forehead, then these would be the two temples. And that is about what you need to be able to capture the stone. If you go more narrow, that's fine. You just curve a little bit more. But if you go wider, then the stone's going to fall out. Okay? So that's what you're aiming for. Once you get these up to a 90 degree and you've checked your stone, you can either hold your stone in place or you can use a plier to make these bends. I like to just hold the stone in place because sometimes the stone, these faceted or rose cuts, are not this, completely symmetrical on top. So just get yourself lined up. It's hard to see underneath all my fingers here, but it'll be easier for you. And then I'm holding the stone, but I'm also giving downward pressure so that I can push these wires more straight up the body of the stone. Ultimately, we're going to aim for diving these wires into those spaces. Into the space at the top there. It's hard for me because I'm trying to stay in the camera. Okay, so I'm braced right there. I'm just going to get the other one tilted and slanted up a little bit more. It's a little easier for me to do it this way. So it's kind of like this now. Okay? With this right hand side, I'm going to take a slight bend back, so I'm going to use my middle finger here to just give it a pad to rest that wire on. I'm holding the gemstone back with my finger right there the best that I can, and I'm bending this out right there at the curve, and I'm going to take a long bend way out here, and I'm going to inch, direct myself back towards the loop. Change direction now. It's hard to hold on to. Get the head of that in through the loop. Start to pull it through, and you can help by pushing a little and pulling a little. Try to keep that same bend right there. It should remember the bend since we already pre-bent it. So just work the wire through, straighten out the leading wire here to give yourself some better leverage. Take a look at it. It's okay if the gemstone's a little wonky right now, don't worry. And then scooch it to this side. Try to keep the gemstone balanced. Scooch the wire to this side and just bend it straight down the back and kind of slant it off to the right hand side. So just like that. It's a little easier than I made it look because I'm underneath the camera. If your gemstone's lopsided a little bit, it's okay. You can just tap it. But the wire should be nice and snug up against the one side, and it should be nice and snug over that shoulder. It'll look like almost a little pyramid, so don't worry. Just kind of eyeball the balance of your gemstone and make sure you're in the center. Okay, so having done that side, I'll switch hands. I'll hold all of this. So back here, my thumb against this wire. I'm going to use my middle finger here to give that bend a little bit of a brace. I'll fold back a little bit, take a long bend in my wire, and scooch the bend forward toward the opening. I want to leave, just push a little and pull a little. Then once you get it started, you can move your finger. Get it through there. straighten out the leading wire. It'll help you. And then just continue to push the wire through. Check the placement of your gemstone before you come all the way down with it. Get it onto the face of your gemstone. You can make small adjustments later, so don't freak out if it's not perfect. It's soft wire, so just work it with your finger. It's very easy for me to just push it through. Once you get it laying down nice, brace from the back and from the front, and make sure you get a nice tight bend over that shoulder, slope down and slightly out. So that should be a nice hold on that gemstone. Just like that. And if your gemstone shoulders are off, it's okay a little bit, because we're going to make one more pass. So just use your fingers and snuggle it down. Should look like a little pyramid in here. And you see, if your gemstone might still shift left and right, it's okay until the second pass. Okay? So make sure these two wires are laying down nice and flush, nice and flat, as flat as you can, no bubbles. And then these two on the shoulders are laying down nice and flat, and your little triangles looking nice. Now this next move is going to lock the shoulders in, so we'll be a little more mindful, and they're going to come, the wraps are going to come above the previous one. So if the spread of yours right here are a little bit too far, get some small pliers and you can just do a nice shoulder blade pinch back here, just softly, and get them scooched in a little bit more together. They don't have to be touching, but you don't want them too far apart, because the second pass comes above them. So, and the second pass is what will make the gemstone hold still and not shift at the shoulders there. Okay, so I'm going to curve out to about halfway in the gemstone. So I'll hold this wire, and I'm just going to curve the wire, coming out about halfway, about midway in the gemstone. I'll make this curve the same, about midway in the gemstone. And now I'll get my very small fine pliers. You can use fine flats, or you can use chain nose pliers, whichever you want. I'm going to use these. And right here, I'm just going to eyeball a turn. I'm going to turn the wire up and make it ready to go back through there again. So about 1 millimeter off the side of the gemstone, I'm going to grip. I've got my finger here behind it to brace the wire, and I'm just going to make a nice turn. I'm not pushing, I'm not pulling, just making a nice, little more than 90-degree turn up. And I want to be next to the gemstone body. So just like that. I'm going to brace with my finger here so that I can take a nice long bend. So I pull it out and down slightly, take a nice long bend, and come back through that loop again. You can use your pliers to help you if it gets a little bit tight to do. Pull down and then pull out to help you get through there. Then you can push with your finger and land that wire nicely on the shoulder, on the side shoulder there. Okay? Don't tighten it until you check the actual placement. It should look the same on both sides. It looks pretty good. The gemstone shouldn't have shifted too much. So we'll just snuggle that into place. Make sure that you've got a nice loop that lays down real good right there. It's elegant. And then brace your thumb right here, hold it from the back, and make a very nice tight bend down. Okay? We're going to go almost 360 one more time, but that's optional. You don't have to go around one more time. Actually, I might not. Let's just go these two. So I'm going to cut it off, and I'm just going to make a little tiny turn and tuck the end. So I'm not going to go through the ring again. I'm just going to make a little curve. So I'll just eyeball that. Take my flush cutters, and I'll cut about 1 millimeter or so above this curve. So it's a little more than halfway up. It's just enough to give me enough to make a turn. If you need to use your plier to skinny this up a little bit, you can. I don't need to, but if you do, you can just tap it. Be careful not to leave a plier mark, or if you do, you'll have to sand right there. Okay, and then right here, it's easier to turn it this way. Hold on to everything, take your plier, get right to the end of that cut, and just make a nice 360 turn, just like that. Use the plier to help you turn the cut all the way up, and tuck it back on itself, just to make a nice little tiny little end bit right there. Your option is to do another 360 and end it on the back, but you know that gets bulky, so if you can do this, that looks nice. Just make sure you don't, you know, that the cut end isn't showing too much. Okay, and now we'll repeat on this side. I'll take my pliers and I'll just eyeball. I already bent it out to the center, so I'm going to put my finger underneath and brace it. Take my plier about 1 millimeter off the gemstone, and I'll just turn straight up towards the bail to a soft little more than 90 degree. And I'm just going to eyeball and see that it's even with the other side. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to put my finger behind and my finger over here. I'm going to make sure that this bend is underneath my finger so that it's braced, and I'm holding the top wires. I'm going to pull the wire back and take a long bend at the tip, work the tip through the opening, pull a little, push a little, get it lined up so that it's to the left hand side. Pull it a little bit more. Might be a little bit tricky on this side. Just work it carefully. Gently guide it with your fingers. If you need to, you can go back and forth on the wire like this to help it scooch through. And there it is. Okay? Make sure it's laying down nicely and that it's shaped nicely. So I'll just use my finger and press it down. Brace it from the back as well and lay it down along the gemstone. You can use your plier to help you too, but I try to do my fingers so that I don't nick the wires right there. And then hold that in place when you have it. Bring this wire down right beside the other one. Make a nice sharp, tight turn. Bring it down and slope it off the back, just like the previous one on the opposite side. Cut the wire so that, I'll take these weird kinks out and make it nice, and then cut the wire about 1 millimeter above the curve. And I might just pinch this a little bit gently so I don't give myself something to sand. And then turn it so that it's upside down. Put your fingers here so that the wires don't move when you make this turn. Get a very fine plier or even your round nose. I tend to like my fine plier so I don't divot the end. And I'm just going to make a very tight, I'm pushing down against my finger to make this a very tight turn while I turn it. It just helps me to turn it. Once I get it turned over, then you can come from the top to help you close the loop. Look at it from the front. Woo! And that looks pretty good, you guys. It should just be barely showing there. And the cut end doesn't show, which is good. Love it. So cute. And now we'll repeat with the second one. If you need to do, if you need to tap this ring and straighten it back out, use a nylon jaw. You can hold it there and kind of manipulate these wires, make sure that they're laying down nice. Make sure these front wires are spaced evenly. Should feel very, very sturdy. Just the cutest little bit. So cute. And if I need to push my wire out, I can easily do that with my fingers, just gently exposing the belly. So that's a very, very tight fit. Really easy, really simple, and maximum gemstone. You know, if the wings, if you don't like them a little bit, just use your fingers, or you can use nylon jaws and just do a little gentle squeezing. Or if you like the wings, you can just get your fingernail really and flare them out a little bit. So cute. Wait until you see the ear wire, you guys. Okay, so let's do the second one. Darling. Okay, remember that when the gemstone is balanced there, we're looking to be right at the temples of the stone here and here, so that looks pretty good. I'll use my thumb, get right to the end of the weave, about 1 millimeter, you know, right off the end of that weave, and I'll just use the edge of my thumb to start these bends. I'm holding on to this, the spoon part too, to make sure it, you know, doesn't shift while I make this bend. Just push straight up into a little more than 90 degree. Check to see that they're even. If they're not, you can adjust them. This one probably could use some adjustment on this side here. You could also do this with your pliers. Okay. I tend not to, just because I like to, you know, keep it as clean, nick-free as I can, but anyway, and it's soft wire. So now I'll balance my gemstone there. That looks really good. That looks good. Got this one I could adjust a little bit. Okay, so now I'll use the gemstone to push these wires forward a little bit more. Just try to go up the sides of your gemstone here. Because we weaved, you know, so close and only 1 millimeter, they should not spread out more than these temples. That's why we did that. Okay, so that's pretty good. I might adjust the one side here. I feel like I'm a little bit off on this one side. So just open it up a little bit and then push it back down a little bit. Even them out. This gemstone is a little bit more shallow, not as thick as the other one. Same size, but just not as deep, not as thick. Okay, that's pretty good there. Whoop! Woo! It's tricky, you guys. Just be patient with yourself. And well, you won't be balancing underneath the camera either. So that's pretty good there. Yeah. Okay, so now I'll hold on to everything. I'll just push that one flat, make it easy. So I've got my finger underneath here. I'll pull this one back with, you know, bracing that corner. Give it a nice long bend. Push it through. Pull down until you get past that lump. Straighten the wire out and then pull forward. And then once you get close to your gemstone, push from the body and make sure that you're close to the gemstone, and and then work this wire straight down the back and sloping off to the side a little bit, just like that. It's okay if the gemstone shifts, just get it realigned, and that looks pretty good. Squeeze, make sure that you're settled right there, nice and settled on the gemstone, and nice over that shoulder, nice and snug. Okay, so now we'll do the opposite side. Brace, hold the gemstone here, put your finger there to give that bend some support. I pushed this up to make it easier for me to hold on to, so I'm going to pull it back a little bit. And I'm going to do a long bend, scooch the end towards the opening, push through, pull down until you get over the major curve, and then straighten your wire out and pull forward so that it lands on the gemstone. And that mangles, that's how we try to work with neat wire all the time, so that's the easiest way that I have found to get the wire through tight spaces without mangling it all up. Okay, so just check your fit, check your gemstone to make sure it's sitting properly. Get it down on the body of the gem. That looks pretty good. Then you can switch hands. You got your nice little triangle. And then now pull down and get a nice tight fit with that end, and slope it off the gemstone right there. Okay, that's pretty good. Looks really good. Remember that it can still jiggle back and forth because we don't have our shoulders yet. So just make sure your wraps are nice and snug and fit so that there's just barely a little shoulder there, and that looks really good there. Okay, so now I'll make these bend out to about center of the gemstone, straighten the wire, about the side center. Get the bends all nice and cleaned up. Alright, so we've sloping off the gemstone about midway to both sides. That looks pretty good. We're nice and flat and snug on both sides, and the spread of our first wires looks really nice. So now we'll bend up our second little wing. I'll get a fine plier. I'll grip about 1 millimeter off the gemstone and make a soft bend up and towards the bail, almost 90 degree. A little bit more, about like that. That looks good. I'll switch hands, put my finger back here to brace, hold the belly. If you collide with that, just bend it up and out of your way. And now I'll take this end, long bend from the end, push through, pull down, get that major bend through, and then push. Work it so that the wire lands on the side of the previous wire right there, on the gemstone shoulder, and then above the wire there, and that looks pretty good. If you need to use a plier, you can gently do a gentle, barely there squeeze. You should be on the side of your gemstone. That looks perfect. So then I'll hold it. I'll come straight down, nice and tight. Just like that. And now I'll cut this wire off at about 1 millimeter above the bend here, just like the previous earring. About there. And again, if you need to tighten the shoulder up here, you can gently squeeze in here and do that. Just be careful of plier marks right here. I don't need to. The wire's soft enough. You should be able maybe to do it with your hands. And if not, just, do a little sanding if you get a plier mark. So here we go. I'm going to take the very end. I'm holding on to the gemstone. I got my finger to brace. And I'm going to turn a very tight turn. I'm pushing down with my plier while I'm making the turn to give myself the tightest turn that I can get. Just like that. And then I'll use my plier and squeeze it closed. Right there, it should just kind of be pointing back at the loop wire so that the end doesn't face forward. And I might just make it go out. So the end of mine is poking out more than I want, so I loosened it up a little bit and just pushed it back so that when I look at it here, I just see the little edge but not the cut. Okay, and you won't hardly see that anyway. And then again, if you need to tighten it right here, try to get above the loop, get right on both pliers, and then do gentle squeezing. Very gentle, and make sure that you don't have a nick right there. Okay, so now we'll repeat with the other side. Woo, almost done, you guys. Very exciting. These are so darling, it's worth it. It's not as hard as it looks. I'm just, it might take a practice or two. I'm, at a weird angle underneath the camera here with my lighting today. Okay, so I'll grip about 1 millimeter off of the gemstone. Bend the wire straight up. Kind of at an angle. Kind of going towards the opening. I'm going to check an eyeball that they're even. That's about good. They don't have to be perfect, but that's good. I'm going to brace here, hold on, pull back, and give a long bend. Come through. Don't get your finger. You need the plier. Pull down until you pass the big loop. Straighten the wire out, and then pull forward. Okay, and that helps you get through a very tight space there. Okay, hold on to there. Bend this straight down and slope off the side. Just like that. Make sure that's nice and lined up. Do any tapping with your pliers if you need to. I do not need to. Or you can just push with your fingers if you have the finger strength. Make sure that all these are landed nicely. And now I'll take my plier, hold on to the very end, brace that wire with your thumb so that you have some leverage to make a very, very tight turn. Once you get it turned, you can come from either side of it and give squeezing until the cut settles back. And that way you don't see it. Very nice. And you might need to squeeze it right here, back together a little bit tighter once you make that loop right there, because you might have pulled it forward, loosened it up. Check the front, make sure you can't see the cut, and that's beautiful. That should be very nice and very snug. It should feel that way too. Okay, very good. So we'll use a nylon jaw, we'll tap there and hold on to it. You can shape the wires a little bit more if you want to or need to. I'm very happy with mine. It's very neat from the back side as well. Beautiful. And so now we have a darling little pair of gemstone garnet charms. Okay, for the ear wires, I'm starting off with 2 pieces of 20 gauge round, dead soft copper wires. They're cut to 6 inches each. I'm going to use my dowel and I'm going to straighten these wires. cover one end and just do a rolling pin style and roll off the wires, turn them over, spread them out a little bit, hold on to this end, just roll the little bumps and warps out of them. So now you have two beautifully straightened wires. I'm going to mark them at 2 inches. So 2 inches, and I'll take my Sharpie marker, roll them a little bit, and get the wires marked at 2 inches. It's not a big deal. I'm going to use my very fine pliers. They're not dirty like that. It just looks like this because of the light. I'm sorry. Anyway, starting at the 2 inches, you could use your chain nose pliers also. Just going to hold it right there at the mark, and I'm going to bend them completely over themselves like that. Take this little end. You want an opening there, so make sure that there's, at least a millimeter or 2 there. And actually, you can also use your round nose plier if you choose. Just use the very end of it, like that. So anyway, I'll do this one. We work these wires together, doing motions on one and then on the other to make sure that they're even. I'll just take my round nose and make sure that that's not too tight there. Just like that. And now working with the long end, so the short end's in back and the wire's on its edge, I'm going to take my very fine plier and hold the bottom couple of millimeter. I'll take the long wire and just make a very sharp bend to the left and down. From here, go about 2 millimeter out. And I'll use my fine plier and just hold on to that little space right there at the edge. I'll turn a nice, cute, tiny little curve in the wire. And then from this edge out, make that a little nicer. I'm going to go about a quarter, maybe, let's see, it's about a quarter of an inch. So from here out to here, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you'll grip right there, hold tight, flip the wire back onto itself. This might be a little bit tricky, but you'll want to squeeze that space closed a little bit, so very gently. Squeeze the tip of that. Come back to, so this is the short end, this is the up, okay? So once you get that squeeze on it, hold it again from here, the very tip, and pull the wire apart. It's a little bit tight. Hold it at its tip, and then come back into a little curve. So you make the tiniest little leaf right there. Just like that. So cute. Takes a little bit of practice. This littlest one is the hardest one. If you need to make it curvier, you can put your plier in there and just do gentle motions. That's darling. So now let's do the opposite side. You want to make sure that this stem always stays clear and you don't close that one down there. That's where the earring hangs off. Okay, so the long wire is currently pointed down. So now we'll catch the other earring up. And we'll remember to go in the opposite direction. So the long wire's in the front. I'm going to hold it right here at about the bottom 1 millimeter right here. Nice grip. And I'm going to make a very sharp bend in this wire down and to the right this time. Just like that. Then I'm going to hold it right here, right about where it curves. I'm going to turn my wire upside down. It's a little easier for me to hold on to it. I'll hold it right here where it curves. And I'll take this wire and just create a little bend in it. And then about 1/4 of an inch out, I'll grip it right here, just beyond the belly of this curve. Flip it back over itself, nice and tight. Squeeze that little end closed. You don't need to kill it, just give it a nice little squeeze. And now hold it. So this is the up part of the earring. We've done half the leaf, and now we're going to swing this wire up and do the other half of the leaf. So hold it right there. Swing this wire all the way up. Make like a little triangle. Then you can get your finger in there, make a curve, and bend it back down right in front of that first wire. So it makes like a little leaf. You can shape it a little bit more with your finger or with the plier if you need to open it up a little bit more, or skinny it up a little bit more, I think is what I'm going to do. From the top, I'm going to take some of that curve out. And that's pretty good there. I'll compare it to my other one. That's pretty good. They don't have to be super perfect. Happy with that. Might open this one up slightly. Take some of the curve off the top of this first one. Take some of that edge off. I just straddle it like this. Squeeze lightly. Then you can reopen. Whoop. Then you can open the leaf back up again a little bit. Ooh. Okay, that first one's the hardest one, you guys, because it's tiny. Remember that the short end is always on top. So here's the one side and here's the other side. And that's pretty good. Okay, so from here, I'll just take this one and start. So right where it meets there, I'm going to hold it this way and bend the wire straight up. So you're almost going straight up with the short stem again. Once you get that bend, get your plier in there and you can squeeze it a little bit more closed. Try not to nick it. I'll have to sand that now, but I might tie something over that. Okay, so both wires should be going straight up. And now hold it right here at the bend. Fold it out to horizontal like that. And then make a curve in it. Back up to vertical, back up to being parallel with that one. And now make this leaf slightly bigger. So from this curve, go out about a half an inch, and not a half an inch, a quarter of an inch, or slightly more than a quarter of an inch, a little bit bigger than the previous one. Bend it over on itself, hold tight, bend it over on itself. Squeeze it closed a little bit right there. Try not to nick it, just work carefully. Hold on to that edge. Swing the wire to the left to make the opposite side of this leaf. And then put a little curve in it and curve back towards the bottom. Just like that. So this is how they're facing. Remember that that little loop is where the earring hangs off, so this is going to become the earring stem, you know, the hook. So this is the orientation of your wire. And that's two cute little leaves. So now we'll do the opposite earring. Right here, where it meets the curve, hold it this way. It's a little tight getting in there. You just want to bend it up, kind of into a V shape. You know, you're not putting a twist in it like that, you're just bending a straight V. And once you get it bent, you can come on top of it. Get it to where it's going straight up. If you want, you can squeeze that a little bit. You don't have to close it. Hold it from here now. Whoop. It's getting a little, let me move my camera up a little bit so I don't have a little more room. So now once, once this wire is going straight up, hold it from here now, right there, and bend it horizontally to create a little stem. I'm going to turn this upside down so that I can hold on to it a little easier. Hold on to the little stem, and then you'll create a little curve in this wire. Kind of get it going back up parallel with the other wire. Keep everything on the same plane. So like that. Come a little further out than this one. So quarter of an inch and then a smidge. Hold tight. Bend back on yourself. Squeeze that little bit closed. It doesn't have to be all the way closed. Hold on to it right here. Swing up. like a little triangle. Just going to re-grip right there. Put a curve in that wire and bring it straight down and into that little V shape. There's the second leaf. Let's compare and see what they look like. That's pretty good. I'll skinny this one up a little bit, because I like the thinner one better. So all I need to do is just get that belly down a little bit. So cute, you guys. So cute. Okay. And now we've got a couple of more moves, and then we'll be able to put the earrings on. So once we get this, I'll go with this one. Right here, where that little divot is, just below it is where you can grab the wire comfortably. So just try to grab it right there at the V. Try not to be in the way of this loop. Try to be right there, right above it, kind of in that little divot where the two halves of your leaf meet right there. And now you'll just push up, straight up, over the plier to bring that wire straight up. You can squeeze it closed. Sometimes using a bigger plier when it gets a little tighter here is better. Using a wider plier. Okay, so I just squeeze it closed a little bit. I'll hold on to it right there and kind of fit it into that little divot of a V shape. It should fit kind of nicely right in there. Okay? Hold on to it at its edge. Go up a little bit past this first little leaf and give a nice curve out. Nice deep curve out like that. Hold on to it right there at the curve. It's going to get tight now. And make a nice curve upward. Just beyond the short leaf, the little one below it, hold on to the wire. It's about the same distance as the other one. Bend it over itself. Pinch it closed. Or more closed, I should say, not closed necessarily. Hold it at its edge by the upper 1 millimeter. Whew, it's going to get, it'll be easier for you because you're not under the camera, so you can face this wire. I'm trying to do this wire not actually facing me, but facing that way. So I'll hold it at its edge and just create my last little leaf here by bending that wire back down. I'll have to shape this one a little bit. That's pretty good. What's hanging here is about a little more than a half an inch. It might be a half an inch. It's about a half an inch. Yeah, it's about a half an inch. Hopefully I'll get the other one the same. And that looks pretty good. Here's the other wire now. Right there where that little V divot is underneath there, it's where I'm going to grab. So right underneath here is a good place to grab it, right here. Get your plier aligned so that when the wire bends, it'll sit in there. So you're going to be just about a millimeter above that V. Bend the wire straight up. There's lots of ways to do leaves, so if you don't like my way, certainly there's a lot of beautiful ways to do leaves out there. This is probably a little trickier because it's on an earring stem. So now once it's bent up and squozen in, I'll hold it at its edge, and it's fine tip plier work. I'll come out to the right this time. I'll make a nice horizontal bend in that wire, and that little divot should ride nicely kind of in that V we left there. Okay? So just hold on to it here at the curve. Use your thumb and your finger to curve the wire for your next little leaf. It's kind of got a little upslope on it. And I'll get out here and I'll hold it about a little more than 1/4 of an inch from the stem out, so about 1/4 of an inch, just above this little guy. Bend it back on itself. Pinch the wire closed or closer. Hold on to its tip edge. Swing the wire up. And then get a little bend in it so that you can make the body of your second leaf. Ooh, mine is a little shorter on this one, or I got this leaf a little bigger, one or the other, but that's okay. Just gonna work my little leaf. Sometimes if it's hard to work that end, come from below it and do like that. And there we go. And I'll let that hang down. This one's a little bit shorter than the other one, and that's okay. Woo! I got all my leaves. Here we go. I got all my leaves on my earring stems, and they look really nice. They look fairly even. They don't have to be perfect, but they look pretty good. So now I have this little stem that comes down, and I can, do anything creative with that. Put a little bead on it, or, put a little curl on it, something like that. So I'll do that. Since I have one shorter than the other, what I'm going to do is level them out to the short one so that I know what I have to work with on both earring wires. So I'll just line them up fairly evenly here, and I'll just snip the tip of this little wire off to get both of those stems fairly even in size, or length, I mean. And now I think what I'll do is I'll drop a little bead ball in there, a 1 millimeter, and then just, do a little curl with this thing or something. Or actually, I don't think I have enough room to do a bead ball, do I? So maybe what I'll do is just do a little spiral. I'll just end it that way. If you have a little length, you might do a curly Q and a tiny 1 millimeter bead ball. So I'm starting with the one where it's on the left. The wire ends on the left, and I'm going to curl up a tiny little spiral. So I'll hold everything, use the pad of my finger and my round nose plier, hold on to that wire, and turn a tiny little spiral coming up to that tiny spot right there. And that way you can drop a bead ball in there if you want to, and that's super cute. We'll have to tie, some of this together to make it hold. right? That's darling though, isn't it? Now we'll do this one. So this time, here's the front of the wire, and it's coming this way, so this time my spiral's going that way. So I'll hold it upside down, get my plier on the very tip of it, and make a very tight little turn into that cute space. I'll turn this one a little bit more. And now when I look at them both, they're darling. And I'll put some tie wire on there, and I'll do some beads. So this should sit nice right next to that little divot we put. These are layered nicely so that these wires should lay nicely together. We'll tie a little bead ball in there and tie it all up. Same with this one. You know, the whole thing should kind of lay nested into that crevice we left there, and right next to that little bump out, so that wire lays nicely. Okay, so we'll get some 28 gauge and a couple of tiny 2mm beads. Well, it turns out I don't have any 1mm copper beads, so I scrambled, and I think I'm just going to improvise with my silver ones. I bumped my camera, you guys. Sorry. Ooh, I really got to redo this. I remember I moved, so my studio's not all there yet. All right, so I've got about 10 inches of some 28 gauge, and I've got one of the earrings here. And I think I'm just going to do, for the sake of ease, a couple of little ties to get this wire settled, and then continue the ties, you know, and add the bead ball into maybe that little crevice or something there. We'll see what I do. But you can get creative with yours. So I'm going to slip the wire behind this one leaf here, give myself a lead of about 1 inch so I can hang on to it, and press them all together nicely. They should sit all together nicely. Just going to make a couple of little wraps around this one leaf right here. There's one. There's two. I'm going to use the opposite side of the wire. Did I get it? Yeah, I think I'm good. Yeah, I just want those two. You don't want to tie this bar down, so just remember that, and you don't want to tie into that, your earring, unless you want to jump ring into your earring, but your earring's going to slip through the hook. Okay, I've got about 1 inch here, and I'm just going to use that. I've made a couple of wraps, and I'm in that little corner there. I'll get one of my 1mm, this might be 1.5, these are hematite, faceted hematite silver colored beads, not sterling, not even metal. Hematite. Anyway, we'll pretend it's like a little dewdrop or something. Just put it there. Make sure it's landed nice and snug. And then I'll use the short end of this wire and just wrap it to the back of the sleeve. There it goes. That's cute. And I'll just make 3 little wraps here to get it tied on there nicely. Terminate the wire in the back. And just roll that cut end down. And now I have the long length of the wire. I can continue to add little beads, or I can just say that one's enough, right? That's up to you. I might put one more into this nice little crevice, maybe one bigger one. Let's see. So I'll just drop it onto the end of my wire. I'll let it fall down to the earring, and I'll position it so that it's kind of not just functionally there, but hopefully artistically there. I think that one's good. And I'm just going to tie it onto the edge of this leaf. Get it snuggled into that little spot right there. Just bring the wire down. There it is. Just pushing it together from the back. Remember that we're not wrapping that stem. I think I'm going to make 3 of them. That's pretty good. And I might try to put a third one there because I'm always about, 3 of them. So the best way to go is behind the leaf rather than cross over the front. Well, I don't know, maybe crossing the front will work. I think behind it is better. So come behind it and get into that position there. And then I'm going to drop another 1 millimeter, or these might be 1.5, but I'm just going to drop another small one there. But anyway, I think you get the idea. Yeah, I think 3 looks really cute, so I'm going to put 3 there. So I'm going to position that one where I want it. That's really darling. Make sure there's no slack in my wire. And then I'm going to tie it off to this little spiral right here because it's convenient. And I don't need to thread through anything. I can just wrap around it. And I'll just make 3 neat wraps for the sake of it. And that is super cute. Okay. Make sure those wraps are neat. And then I'm just going to cut my wire. Use my fine plier. Ooh. And scrape that cut end down. Okay, that's cute. All right. I'm just going to straighten up the stem here that I squashed a little bit while I was holding it. That's pretty good. Look at how darling that is. Even with the silver beads, that worked out so cute. And if you're wondering what we do with our earring here, I'll give you a quick preview. We insert this beautiful charm onto the base of this earring drop. Members, you know why I'm teaching you this, right? You have a pendant coming up, and I'm preparing you in a small way for that larger style. And this way too, now you might have some matching earring ideas. But this is the idea, and then we'll eventually bend this over into a hook, but I'm not quite done yet. So I'm going to go ahead and go off camera, tie my 3 beads onto my other earring stem, and then I'll come back to here. And you can tie yours on. So now we have 2 really darling ear wires. And I'm going to go ahead and slip my other charm onto this one. So now let's go ahead and bend down the earring wire. Let's make sure it's straight back here. And I'm going to do this with the charm off to make it a little easier on myself. So I'll remove them. I want to make sure my stem wires are nice and upright. And I'll just tap this one a little bit more for some hardness. Now we are up above, we're going straight up the center here. So if you want to get them in the same spot, I just back to back them like this. You can take a Sharpie marker and just mark the spot you want to bend, or you can just eyeball it. I kind of go about a half an inch above where they come together, right there where they intersect, about a half an inch, just because that's the length I prefer for the French hook. You can go shorter, you can go longer. So one at a time, I'll get my step pliers, and I like to use not the largest one, but this one down here for the earring wire. So I'll grip the wires, just get onto the wire, and I'll just bend these ear wires together so that they meet down here, and then I'll give it a little bit of a back turn, and there's my earring wire. So cute, my new French hook. But I am going to hammer this little curve to make it harder, because that's the part that has to sit inside of the ear itself. So once I get this bent over, I get my bench block. You'll have to kind of straddle off the side of the block and hit just the top of the curve. And you don't have to kill it. You just have to tap it so that it's a little bit flat, and that hardens that out. Okay? So that's pretty good. Make sure that you sand this cut down here as well. And so now I'll do my second earring. Where'd it go? So I've got my mark on it there. I'll get that mark into the center of my plier here. Oop. Make sure I'm bending my earring the right way. So I'll put that mark into the center of my plier. It's about right. And I'll bend the wire down and over. I'll bring this one a little bit back to meet it, and then I will put a little upturn in that wire. And there is my earring hook number 2. I hope you guys have enjoyed this project. These are super cute and very versatile. And then to get them on, you belly up the gemstone. So front up, dive the earring hook in, follow it around, and just let it drop into its space. So let me show you the finished pair. Very, very cute. And even if you don't make the charm into earrings, this is a great little charm to dangle off of all kinds of stuff, even a mini pendant. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. They're so cute, and I just love them very much. And I appreciate you for being here. Please give me a thumbs up. Let me know how you're feeling about this sweet little project. And if you make some, please look me up on social media and show me your beautiful work. All right, thanks again. We'll see you for the next one. Take care and much love, you guys.